Welcome on in, golf fans. It's your boy Gsluke here with our DFS and betting preview for this week's Sanderson Farms Championship. Got ourselves another fall series event, and here in this video, going to make sure you're ready for all of your exposure. But first off, look at the golf course and how I'm expecting it to play. We'll go through my modeling, some key stats and comps that I'm using to identify my top plays, and then afterwards, we'll shift our focus into our exposure this week, both from the DFS and the betting side of things, to give you an idea of not only where I'll be putting some of my money this week, but also the kind of players that I'm leaning into as well. So by the end, you have a little bit of a game plan and idea of what to be researching in your players to have yourself a week. So we got a lot to go through here. It's always any time at all. Start off with, first off, look at that golf course and some of those modeling stats of the week. Country Club of Jackson is a birdie fest, so when we get to this golf tournament, we're focused on scoring more so than avoiding bogey. So we're going to have approach at the top end of the board that is almost always our number one key stat, but after that, it's a lot of trying to get to minus 20 to minus 25, and that's normally what we see as the winner around this kind of event, which is not only important for this top 5 in betting markets, but also in particular, probably even more so important for your DFS lineups as well, because of course your score is almost directly correlated to the amount of birdies that you're making. You do get some placement points on top of that, maybe a streak or two in there, but of your 60 to 100 points that you're scoring week in and week out, 60 to maybe 75 to 80% of those points are going to be with your raw birdie production. So approach play, I'm looking at 150 yards and in. A lot of your birdie looks around Country Club of Jackson are coming with your wedges, so whether it's 50 to 125 or 125 to 150 yards, both of those getting a little bit of extra looks this week. I'm also including regular approach form as well, so whether that's the last 12 or the last 24 rounds, but our number 2 key stat category is going to be your shots gained putting. So last 12, last 24 rounds heading into this event, but in particular the Bermuda grass surface, which is the type of agronomy that we have at this event, are things that I'm leaning into for this event. We've also got birdie or better percentage, just your raw birdie or better production. To get to something like minus 20 to minus 25, you're going to have to go out there and be aggressive. Off the tee, it's more of a distance over an accuracy course, only about a 50% fairway percentage to begin with, so a lot of players taking driver, just hitting it a long way. It is 7,400 yards, the golf course, so having a driver, and especially on the par 5s, is going to be extremely useful if you're longer than the average player. And then for our comp course, I only have one this week because I think it's by far the best comp course that we have, and that is TPC Craig Ranch. So the home of the Byron Nelson, another wide open, relatively long golf course, but that plays to that minus 20 to minus 25 range. So a lot of the same kind of birdie or better stats, the same kind of iron stats that we look at both golf courses translate, and driving distance being more important than the driving accuracy are all things that we're looking at that golf tournament. So when you put that all together, we're looking for guys that have a little bit of aggression to them, that can shoot those minus 7 to minus 8 rounds, because to hold pace over 72 holes, you're going to need that for at least 3 of the 4 days. So when we translate that to our exposure, it looks like Min Woo Lee is going to be our first play of the week. So $9,800, I took him to win at 22 to 1. That was a 20 to 1 boosted 10% on Hard Rock Bet, so that's how I got it to that plus 2,200 effective odds. And he's a core play for me in DFS as well. He's an extremely aggressive player, high birdie percentage player when he's playing his best golf. And while the stats aren't really going to show this, he's been playing excellent golf his last 2 starts out. He has a top 5 finish his last start in contention on the DP World Tour, and then had a T11 finish in front of that. And while on the PGA Tour, he's been a little bit hit or miss, in particular over the last 6 months. He's had the highs of a win. He's also had a lot of missed cuts mixed in there as well. This is a fall series event, and this is a golf course that leans into a lot of his strengths. He's a very long player off the tee, so that driving distance aspect he checks emphatically. He's also a good scorer on those par 5s. I know it wasn't one of our custom modeling stats, but par 5 scoring is important around this kind of a track as well. And then with his wedges, when you get him close to the hole, he's really good with those scoring clubs. So that's why I like playing him at these birdie fest kind of venues. And though he doesn't have any course history around here, this will be his first time teeing it up at Country Club of Jackson. I think it's a match made in heaven. So up top, by the way, I think Akshay is going to be by far your highest owned player. Chalk this week I think is going to be extremely easy to fade. This is a fall series event. These birdie fests a lot of times come down to putting. They can be a putting contest, as John Rahm would put it, and a lot of times that adds variance to the results, and it makes it kind of hard to predict who's going to have that big putting week. So chalk, anyone that's getting close to that 25 to maybe even that 30% mark in GPPs, I'm almost automatically going to be crossing them off. And I think because of the form of the PGA side hasn't been as good for Min Woo as what you saw on the DP World Tour, with him nearly winning in back-to-back weeks, is I think going to keep the ownership around averagely owned in this range, maybe slightly above that average ownership, but I don't see it getting too far out of hand. So that's why in large field GPPs, where I'm looking to get some leverage at the top end of the board, really across the board, because of the kind of variance that we have at these birdie fest sort of venues, he's absolute gold for those kind of a format. So we we take a look at the shots gained metrics, there's not really the reason for playing a Minwoo Lee. He's losing on approach over his last 12 rounds, gaining in the other 3 categories. And then over the last 24 measured rounds, it's the same kind of stat profile. So we'd have to hope that he has a little bit of a better performance when it comes to that second shot. But considering that his better categories are from 150 yards and in, this is a good venue from that perspective. Next player we're going to go through is going to be Jacob Bridgeman at $9,200, and more of a leverage play here because his form, at least compared to some of the other players around them, is not nearly as strong over the last 12 rounds. So if you're looking at some of the fall series stuff or towards the very end of last season, Jacob Bridgeman doesn't look like that good of a player, but he was also playing in some of the bigger field events. He, made it towards the very end. I believe was in the first playoff event, was playing in some of the signature event majors towards the very end of the year as well. So to look at his shots gained profile and use it one-to-one versus some of these guys that were only playing in secondary events, not getting into the signature events or playoffs, is I think a little bit unfair. So a Bridgeman at $9,200 I think is playable on a week like this, in particular because his Bermuda grass putting is some of the best of anyone in this range. And even the shots gained metrics, if you look at the last 12 or the last 24 rounds, it hasn't been terrible. I mean, the approach play, just like we had with Minwoo, is slightly into the negative. He's normally one of the best putters that we have on tour, so I'm not worried about that putting over the last 12 round sample size. But if you go to the last 24 rounds, zoom out a little bit more, it's still the same kind of profile where he's losing a little bit on approach or a little bit with the putting, but these were some of the stronger field events that we had towards the end of the year, and he still was a little bit closer to neutral over those 2 categories, so he's really not too far off. And if you go to the form and I show you guys those kind of events, I mean, you can see up here, he played at the St. Jude, he played at the BMW Championship, top 20 finish, top 17 finish at the St. Jude. His shots gained metrics, even though they're not 0.5 strokes total, not a stroke gain total over his last 24 rounds, they're in fields that are 2 to 3 times as strong. So I think that a lot of your model heads, a lot of the people that are only looking at the box scores and not looking at the type of events where they're coming from are going to miss out on a player like Jacob Bridgeman. So I'll take that high upside. He is a sprayer off the tee. It's worth noting that just like Minwoo Lee, he doesn't hit all that many fairways. A golf course like this that's a little bit more lenient off the tee is going to play into his advantage. And he's a high birdie percentage player, top 50 on the PGA Tour in terms of birdie or better percentage overall. Again, he gets to play in some of those harder golf courses, some of the bigger fields, stronger field events of the year as well. So that top 50 in that category is also a little bit more impressive than maybe some of the mid to lower tier guys that were popping off in that category as well. All things that I think work into his favor here. So I got him at 50 to 1 on Hard Rock Bet, also boosted that 10% and was able to get that to the plus 5,500 odds, which I thought was worth the sprinkle. It's not one of my bigger unit bets this week by any means, more of just a sprinkle there. But in GPPs, he's going to give us a ton of leverage. You've got an Emiliano Grillo that's got much better form around him. You can see top 20 form there, top 20 form on a Nikolai Højgaard, a Rico Hoey's number 30. Really, the one sore thumb when it comes to the last 12 rounds is Jacob Bridgeman here. So that's why I think he could be sub 10% owned, potentially around like 8, maybe 9% in those large field GPPs, which means if you throw him in 18 to maybe 20% of your lineups in a 150 max contest, that's going to be 2x, maybe a little bit over that 2x leverage. And that's not a big investment, right? That's a little bit of a sprinkle on Bridgeman, just like I did with my outright exposure. But with the kind of upside that he has, a high birdie percentage, extremely streaky player, I think it's worth taking that sort of a shot on it. Next up, we got Cam Champ at $8,800. He's somebody that models out a little bit better this week, and I do think it's going to be a little bit chalkier. I got him at 60 to 1 for my outright, boosted 10% to 66 to 1. And Cam Champ is somebody you play at these easy sort of golf courses, especially ones where you can hit driver often. Of the 14 driver holes here, 13 of them are driver holes where you're going to have no problem hitting the big stick. I think there's one forced layup around here, so that advantage where you can carry it 325 to 330 through the air is going to be exploited. And Cam Champ's also been playing really good golf. Now, on the other side of the Jacob Bridgeman argument, where Bridgeman's been playing at some of the stronger events of the year, Cam Champ is not. He's only been playing in these small field events. So though he's gaining about a stroke per round over his last 12 rounds, we do have to take that with a slight grain of salt. And then over the last 24 rounds as well, he's getting 1.4 shots gained per round, gaining across all 4 stat categories. He looks unbelievable. He has been playing some of the best golf that he's had over the last couple years, but it has been against some scrubs. So I still like Cam Champ, still using him as a core play this week, but I'm not going to pretend like he's now just Scotty Scheffler or something like that. He's still the extremely volatile, extremely roller coaster up and down Cameron Champ that we've come to love at this point. But the thing that we love about Cameron Champ, it's part of that roller coaster process, is that when he's on, he's on. He can win golf tournaments. We've seen that multiple times. We've seen him go from missing 8 to 10 cuts in a row to winning out of nowhere. This would not be a Cameron Champ winning out of nowhere. And this is why I'm going to bet him at 66 to 1. First off, he's a proven winner. A lot of other players in this range could not say that. In fact, there's a lot of guys in this range that have never even come close to winning on the PGA Tour before. And Cam Champ, when he can win out of nowhere, it's like, oh, whatever, it's just Cam Champ. If he won when he was in form, it would not surprise anyone. I can tell you now, even the announcers would be like, yep, there's Cameron Champ just having his one really good week a year where he ends up getting into that winner's circle and paying off his entire salary. That's why I'm playing him at $8,800 here. He's tailor-made for the golf course, just like the first two players that tend to spray it a little bit. With that distance does come a little bit of inaccuracy off the tee, which you can get away with around this kind of a golf course. And though he's not an amazing putter on the Bermuda grass surface, he's about a neutral, which is better than some of the other surfaces on tour. You may have seen this over the last 12 or the last 24 rounds. He's been putting particularly well, gaining about a third of a stroke per round. And when he wins, when you've historically seen him get into the top 3 or the winner's circle, he's had 6 to 7 shots gained into the putting. So he's definitely going to have a spike week to be able to cash that outright for us. But in large field GPPs at $8,800, we probably need a top 10 finish from Cam Champ to pay that off. And he certainly has the upside to get that kind of thing done. Before we go into our fourth core play and then our 4 value plays, more long shot plays towards the bottom end of the board, just want to remind you that you can download these sheets in full on my Patreon page. Link in the description will take you to that. Golf DFS tier is how you get access to these. Has my modeling, has my projections, entire player pool for every single player that's teeing it up. It's got the recent form, event history, shots gained metrics over the last 24 and last 12 rounds, as well as all my modeling weights over here towards the right side. For that, link in the description, as I said below. Golf DFS tier, only $15 a month. Not only gives you access to these main slate sheets as they update throughout the week, there'll be ownership a little bit later on tonight that I'll be posting over there, as well as all the showdown content for rounds 2 through 4. So check that out if you guys haven't already. And let's get into our last core play here before we talk about some long shot values. Last core play is going to be Luke Clanton, and I'm extremely biased, so if you want to skip this 2 minutes here and move on to the next play, I could not blame you. He's essentially becoming Jordan Spieth here on the channel. I'm going to play Luke Clanton every time he's overlooked, anytime he's at over 50 to 1 at an easier event like this, because I'm a believer in his long-term talent level. And if you're somebody that's higher on a player than the rest of the field is, then you should be using them in a lot of your lineups. So maybe this isn't so much an example of somebody that I think is like a must play this week. That's certainly not the case, but it is an example of having conviction behind some of your takes. So I'm not going to jump off the Clan train. He's had a few rough events. I think he'd be the first one to tell you that. In fact, I've held off from trying to reach out because I feel like he's thinking that himself. He's a really hard guy on himself. So I'm sure he's been working at it, and I don't want to poke the bear too much. $8,600 though, 60 to 1 boosted to 66 to 1 to win this sort of event. Just something that I can't pass up. We know the kind of talent that the kid has. How many top 10 finishes was it out of his first 5? I think it was 3 of his first 5 starts. He had the top 10, nearly won one of those at the John Deere Classic. This is the sort of player that is streaky, as these young players can be. When they're off, they're going to miss cuts. But when they're on, he has that top 10 potential, and we've seen that in his young career to this point. So $8,600, I would say that he's more of a GPP play than anything. Should be extremely low owned because, I mean, let's face it, based on the last few starts that he's had out here, he's overpriced. He has not been playing that solid golf. But if you go to the last 24 and last 12 measured rounds, there's been one real big issue that he's had, and it's keeping the ball on the planet. He's normally somebody that'll gain a stroke, maybe even over a stroke per round off the tee, extremely long, usually pretty accurate there as well. But he's had too many water balls that have been holding him back, and for whatever reason, he cannot make a putt for his life, losing about a stroke per round there. Over the last 24 rounds, so if we zoom it out just a little bit more, let's find him here. He's gaining in the 2 ball striking categories, which is solid. Normally better off the tee though, so still kind of struggling with the accuracy there. This golf course though, non-issue. It's a 50% fairway rate. People are just hitting drivers all over the place. Non-issue if you're missing the short stuff, but still losing with the putter. He's been putting on some new surfaces. Again, rookie to the tour, not somebody that's used to playing in the Midwest all that often. From Florida down here, we know him in the community. He's a big guy. He's somebody we're close to down here. Plays on the Pass Palm grass or Bermuda grass 90% of the year. Went to FSU. Also, southeastern grasses 99.99% of the time. I think it's extremely reasonable for him to struggle on those surfaces. He's never seen them before. He's not used to that surface. He's used to the grain, being able to read that and lean into that and find some success. So he's been about a neutral on Bermuda grass for his career. He's not the best putter. He's a ball striking first player. That's what you'll come to know about Luke. But on this surface, he's about a half a stroke better than that 24-round sample size. So if he's a half a stroke better per round, that's a 2-stroke difference over the 72 holes. He has a spike approach week, a spike off the tee week. He's still been gaining in those categories over the last 24-round sample size, and that could be the recipe for a bounce back. And again, I'm slightly biased, so maybe I'm looking like Jordan Spieth too much into the optimism there, but I'll play him at low ownership. I'll use him in the right sort of formats, the large field GPPs, where if he hits, he gets you that top 10 finish at low ownership. He can end up cracking open the slate. Am I going to use him in single entries or cash lineups or as one of my high unit outright bets? Probably not. More of a sprinkle used in those kind of highly volatile sort of situations in case he has that bounce back week that we're hoping for. Next up, we got a Max Homa at $8,400, our first value play of the week, which I'm now doing from $8,500 and below, especially in a shitty field like this. There's just not many guys in the 6K range that are really playable this week. But Max Homa at 44-1 is an excellent value on DFS. And the best way to kind of portray that to you is that Luke Clanton, Cameron Champ, right, they're 66-1. I think they're good bets at that number. They're more expensive than a Max Homa is. Max Homa is only $8,400, and he's 44-1 to win this golf tournament. You've got guys around him like a Stevens, a Higo, a Wallace, a Hostler, and depending on the sportsbook that you're looking at, are 100-1, sometimes even a little bit more than 100-1 to win this golf tournament. Max Homa in DFS is being completely disrespected. He should be in the 9K range, especially with how he's been playing over the last 12 rounds. And surprisingly, he's been one of the best ball strikers in all of the field, gaining 0.4 strokes per round off the tee, 0.67 shots on approach per round over the last 12 rounds, and even the last 24 rounds. If we zoom out a little bit more, try and take out some of that variance, maybe he's just been hot for an event or two. Not really, right? He's still gaining off the tee, which has been a real problem for him for a long time. In the approach play, he had been losing a stroke to a stroke and a half per round for a lot of 2025. Now he's gaining 0.65 shots gained approach per round over that last 24-round sample size. So I'm willing to say it now. I've been holding off, trying to get a bigger sample size before I made this declaration. He's back. Max Homa is back to playing some pretty good golf. Now, does that mean that he's going to win top 5, top 10 over the next couple of weeks? No, golf's still a variant sport. You still have your up and down weeks, but is Max Homa live to win golf tournaments? Is he live to top 5 and top 10 in DFS again? Absolutely. I'm willing to co-sign that at this point. He's back. It's not just the weak field events that he showed up as well. He showed up in some events with some of the stronger players in it at the same time, and he's doing it in the right way. He's not carrying himself around the green with the putter. He's not getting lucky and getting balls to drop with chips from off the green. He's doing it in an extremely sustainable fashion. In fact, he's not the best Bermuda grass putter. He's been really struggling on that surface over the last year or so. But if you go past that sample size, look at it over his entire career, he's much better on this Bermuda grass surface. And he's had some spike performances on it as well. So at $8,400, I don't think he's a safe play, but I think from the projection standpoint that he's being completely disrespected. You can see he projects much better than a Max Homa, than a Luke Clanton. So Homa is usable in single entries or maybe even in a cash sort of format. But I think in large field GPPs, where if he can potentially find some magic on the greens, gain like 3 to 4 strokes in the field, he's an excellent GPP play or an outright bet, as just like Cameron Champ, just like Minwoo Lee, who are proven winners that have shown us that ability before. Max Homa has that dog in him. He's got that clutch factor. It's not somebody who's really going to lay over when things get tough, which I like when I'm taking somebody, especially from that outright market. Next up, we got a Jesper Svensson at $7,700. I took him to win at 60-1, boosted to 6,600 with the 10% boost. By the way, Hard Rock Bet just like hands out 10% boost like they're candy on Halloween, so we'll take that all day. But Jesper Svensson, when I was running my bet the number model, which is a little bit different than what I run on my end, bet the number model is normally the first one that I do to kind of run a dry run before I kind of optimize it based on some of my stuff that I have in my database. But at $7,700, he is an excellent play. In my modeling, he's still a top 20 model ranking play, which is value at number 27 in the pricing. He's long off the tee, so he has the driving distance that we're hoping for the par 5s. He's a high birdie percentage player. He was top 20 on the PGA Tour this year in making birdies. And he's playing well on the DP World Tour, and he's been playing okay on the PGA Tour side, he's had a spike performance or two over the last 3 to 4 months. On the DP World Tour side, he's a lot more consistent. So I like that form that he has heading in, maybe being slept on by some of the masses out there. And at $7,700, he's extremely cheap. This is somebody that could easily be in the 8K range, in my opinion. And on Bermuda grass, you can see gains over a stroke per round in the category. So one of the best putters that we have on the field on this type of grass. He can hit it a long way to reach the par 5s, good par 5 score, high birdie or better percentage player. And I guess the one category that you might be slightly sketched out by would be the wedges. But when you look at the iron ranges, in particular from 150 yards and in, Jesper is top 25 in all those categories, and that's why he was popping so much in the bet the number model, because I had the 75 to 150 yard range weighed extremely heavily in that modeling that I was running over there, and I believe he was top 5 in that proximity bucket. So a Jesper at $7,700, somebody to keep an eye on in your lineups, in particular in large field GPPs, where I think he'll get some ownership because I've seen a few other people that have pointed him out as a potential play this week, but I'm not expecting him to be over 10%. Maybe he's in that like 7, 8, maybe 9% ownership range in those large field GPPs, but still somebody you could use in 18 to 20% of your lineups and get that leverage compared to the rest of the field. Next up, we've got a Matty Schmid at $7,400. I got him at 75 to 1, boosted to 8,250. Jeez Louise, I hate when we have this boost, but essentially 82.5 to 1 to win this golf tournament. And he's another player that's really good on Bermuda grass. Over his last year on the surface, he's gaining 0.72 shots gained on Bermuda per round. He's a long player off the tee, can take on those par 5s and 2, and he's a decent wedge player. And we've seen him be extremely volatile this year. He's had some missed cuts mixed in there, but he's had a lot more of those pot performances where he's finished in the top 20, a few top 10s, even a few top 5s getting into contention this year, which really didn't happen for a lot of 2024. So he's taken a step forward, and you play him at these easier golf courses. He's not so much the kind of guy you play at majors when things get really tough. You play Matty Schmid when you need -5 to -6 almost every single day. And in DFS formats and showdown for rounds 2 through 4, I'll probably be playing a lot of Matty Schmid if he can make it to the weekend. But even for the large field GPP format, in particular at events like this, he's usable because of that kind of upside. He's an extremely aggressive player. He was a top 50 birdie or better percentage player on all the PGA Tour. And you can see the modeling over here. He's number 29 in the field, despite being number 36 in the pricing. So a value from that perspective, somebody that you can feel pretty good about mixing into your lineups. And in DFS, I think is an even better play from the outright. Like the outright might be a little bit of a stretch. There's a reason why he's 82.5 to 1 to win. I mean, he's a long shot there from that sort of a market. But for the top 5, top 10 at what should be about 5, maybe even sub 5% ownership, he's an absolute goldmine from that format. And the last play that we've got here is the biggest long shot of all, but he's maybe my favorite play of the week. I went with actually my biggest outright of the week is on Thirston Lawrence. It's crazy because he's 165 to 1 to win. But he's also the one that I think there's the most value on here. So that's why I took him as the biggest bet of the week. But at $6,900, I think he's extremely usable in DFS. But he had a recent win on the DP World Tour, and he's an extremely volatile player. I'm talking either missed cut or top 5 or win for Thirston Lawrence. He's always been that way. But you play him at courses where you can miss off the tee. He hits the ball country mile. He hits driver literally every single hole unless you have to lay up, unless there's really no choice. Then you have to take something less than driver. He's going to be hitting that big stick. So the fact that you could do that on 13 of the 14 holes here is going to be massive for him. He could take advantage of some of that length. He's a high birdie percentage player, and he's really good when you get close to the hole. He's got hands of a surgeon, I suppose. He's really good from 150 yards and in, and you've seen him play well at these similar style of tracks where you can spray it off the tee, you can really just lean into that iron play and a hot putter. And though he doesn't have a big enough sample size to even qualify for these Bermuda grass stats, he's had some spike performances over the last 2 years on Bermuda. So at $6,900, I definitely think he's worth a sprinkle in DFS, 5 to maybe 10, 15% if you're really getting frisky about it. I'll probably be closer to 15 to 20% mark because I want to make him one of my stands here in that 6K range. And if I use a 6K range player, guys, I'm not going to have a ton of them this week because the 6K range absolutely sucks. This top end of the 6K range probably doesn't even count as the real 6K range either, right? Like, I'll probably go in at most down to $6,700. Like, I'm not going to have anyone that's $6,200 to $6,500 this week. And because of that, because I don't like a whole bunch of guys down here, I'm going to have to commit to the players that I use. And Thirston Lawrence is probably going to be the biggest example of that because he's the player that when he plays well, he finishes in that top 10, that top 20, which is what you need to pay off this kind of price tag. We don't need guys just to make the cut. I think that's a massive misconception in the large field field GPPs is that you're just trying to get a guy through to the weekend. That's like $6,800. No, you're not. It's the same scenario as the rest of your lineup. If you're playing in a contest with 50 to 100,000 other entries, you need to have the absolute nuts. That is what you're worried about. You're not worried about like, oh, I want a decent lineup that min cashes. If you're doing that and you're playing in the large field GPP, you're an absolute clown. You're playing in the wrong contest, you're thinking the wrong way, and you're just donating money to the rest of the field. You're playing in the large field GPP with that many entries, you're playing for one of the top 5 positions. That's where all the money is. It's the most top-heavy contest structure that you're going to see on Draftkings. If you want to build more passively, that's fine. You can build however the hell you want to. Just don't be a clown and do it in the large field GPPs. There's no reason to do that. If you're going to do that, play in single entries. Play in something that's a little bit smaller, maybe a 2 to 3 max or a 20 max that doesn't have 100,000 plus entries in it. And it's the fall swing, so we don't really have 100,000 plus entry contest. It's more so like the 20 to 50,000 entry contest that I'm really referring to when I say that. But play in something that's got a couple hundred entries in it if you want to be a little bit more passive about it. I'm not passive about it. I get over the field. I make my stands towards the bottom because I'm one of those large field GPP sort of players. So not everyone out there is going to be playing the same style of contest that I am, but what you can learn from this sort of content is to cater your exposure for the contest that you're entering. And if you find yourself being more of a passive player, not taking as many risks, then play in the contests that are more suited for you. And if you're more of a psychopath that likes taking on risk like me and that enjoys getting kicked in the nuts every once in a while, then you can play 20% Thirston Lawrence in the large field GPPs. So not expecting him to get there or anything, right? That's kind of the idea. And I think that's why I'm such a good large field GPP player, is that ahead of time, I'm resigned to the fact that a lot of these plays won't get there. You have to be convicted. You have to take stands, because if they end up getting there, you want to give yourself enough shots to actually win the damn thing. You don't want to be going out there just mixing these guys into like 3 to 5% of lineups, because then you only have 3 to 5% of lineups, and you might think that's a lot in a set of 150 lineups, but that's like 7 or 8 lineups. If you're at that 5% mark there, if you've got 7 or 8 lineups and you've got to get the other 5 spots to get to the absolute nuts to take that thing down, good luck. Right? You got 6 chances. You probably think that's a whole lot. It's not, especially when you're playing against 20 to 50,000 other people. So go big or go home. That's my mantra in those contests. And T-Law is probably the best example of that. Alrighty guys, that is all I've got for the DFS and betting preview. We will have a live stream tomorrow evening at 7 p.m. going through props, also DFS, some of the weather before lock. So make sure to stop on by with that with any questions that you might have. Smash that like button. Also subscribe to the channel if you guys haven't already, so you don't miss any of the content to come. That'll include our live stream tomorrow night. Also our showdown and prop streams for rounds 2 through 4. We'll have those throughout the weekend as well. So stay tuned for all of the content to come, and best of luck with everything that you're entering, whether it's in the large field GPPs or with any bets that you're entering. I hope you can cash out and add to the bankroll this fall. And for a chance to earn a free month on my Patreon page, which is where I'm posting all my projections, my entire player pool, every single bet that I'm getting to, all the research tools that you see throughout the content that I'm doing, go ahead and give me your winner for this week. And as long as you guess the winner first, it'll be on a first come, first serve basis. You'll win a free month access to all of those projections and all of the sheets that I'm posting, whether it's for main slate or for showdown and rounds 2 through 4. If you don't want to win it in a giveaway, you just want access right now, link in the description is the best way to join. Again, Golf DFS tier is to get access to all the DFS stuff, also all the outright bets that I'm entering. Prop tier, the golf tier, that's where the underdog and the prize pick stuff is. So obviously that was not the focus of this video here. That will be part of our focus on the Wednesday live stream, but all of that can be found on the Patreon page. So go ahead, enter that giveaway if you guys haven't already. I appreciate all your support here on the channel as per usual, and see you guys for that live stream tomorrow night.